Welcome back to another college football season here with the Win Daily crew. We are breaking down the week one and a college football slate as we are here on Saturday, August 31st. Can't wait to break it down. Hey, I'm Dave Gloeckner, and this is Joel Schreck, and we're here again, the CFB DFS Masterminds. A little bit about us. We work for Win Daily Sports. We talk about every DFS sport out there and much, much more. But here today, we're breaking down the college football slate. What's up, Joel? Another great season.
Great season. I am pumped. For a week one slate, you usually want to ease in, see what the teams look like. For the first time in a long time, as long back as I can remember, I feel like the pricing is aligned this week. We know who the players are coming back who should be the high usage players. I feel as good as I felt for a week one slate heading into a season.
Same here. Long time no talk. Adam Cease, what's up, buddy? I hopefully be back on these platforms a little more this football season. Definitely engaged with you. Thanks for checking in. But yeah, Joel, I know so far played a little week zero, played some Thursday, Friday night, had some good success so far. And really, I'm going to talk strategy real fast with you. We got 12 games on the slate. Now, to me, there's some throwaway games right away. And where I go is I look at totals. I just don't want to really be involved in, like, say, a Miami Northwestern game at 39 points, especially in GPP. If one guy busts, okay, I can live with it. And then some other things, big point spreads. We got to really be careful here. Like, I look at our Ohio State game. 57 is a great total today, actually the second highest, but they're favored by 48.5. Implied team total of Akron is like under 10. So, I mean, how long do their players play? You can still get value, but you might only get 30 minutes action. So you got to kind of weigh those into factor. And then we look at Miami, Florida, really good total, really good point spread at 2.5. That game should be competitive for 4 quarters. So those are kind of things I start to look at before I break down the slate. How about you?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you on that. One of the things you want to think of was, well, yes, I'll use Ohio State as an example. They're huge favorites. They should blow them out. They could score a ton of touchdowns before, to get the points there. But you got to realize, these quarterbacks are priced up. So if you're going to pay $8,500, $9K for a quarterback and they don't play for a quarter or two, there's no way they're throwing for over 300 yards, right? Once they've got the blowout going, they're going to stop airing it out. So he might throw for 250 and 4, but even 250 and 4, like that's the best case scenario. That might not even be – that's like barely value at 9K, right? Because you're not even getting the 300 yards and – so you really got to factor those things in. You really want to find a game that has a back and forth potential to be close because you're getting 4 quarters. They're going to be throwing late in the game, still trying to score. There's a little bit of an edge in it. That doesn't mean you can't play guys who are on teams that are big favorite, not at all. Just know that without getting the extra playing time, it's likely hard to realize a single player's ceiling.
I agree. I mean, I look at a game like Oklahoma Temple last night, 51-3. One player. I think you could have maybe said 2 you needed on your team to really, bust in DFS last night. 4 game slate, so Jackson Arnold did help with the 4 touchdowns, but Deion Burks had 3 of those 4. You needed Deion Burks. Their tight end was very good, Bauer Sharp last night too with the 3,500K. But outside of that, if you're going to play in that game, you need someone to score 3, 4, 5 touchdowns quarterback-wise in those 30 minutes they're going to play. So that's the thing. I don't think you're going to super stack in a big game with a big spread, but you're going to want to identify maybe 1 or 2, like Quinshon Judkins. You hope maybe he runs for 150, 180, gets 2 touchdowns and gets out of there. But yeah, we'll have to identify. We'll talk about all those games, but let's open it up, man. There's some great games today, including UGA, Clemson kicking off at noon.
Let's break it down. What we'll do is I'll share my screen like we always do, and we'll go through the depth charts this week and get an understanding of who we like, who we don't like in each game. We'll go ahead and kick this off just for starters with Georgia Clemson. We'll go right into that depth chart. We've typically in years past, if you followed our show, have always kind of been stay away from attacking Georgia. Their defense is too good. You're not going to get a lot of scores. Georgia's offense can score, so if you want to play that side, fine. I think this game is interesting in that, Clemson can return some blows with Georgia, right? Clemson's a big dog. They're a power team that won't be completely overwhelmed by Georgia, but it's still a very good defense. This isn't necessarily the game environment that I'm like itching to get involved in. The news, I think the big news in this game that you want to be aware of is it does look like ETN, who is Georgia's top running back, is going to be suspended for this game, which means you're going to have a pretty cheap Branson Robinson, who I believe is going to be the starter at 4,800 in a Georgia offense that should be able to score some points. Now, will Nate Frazier get some carries too? Probably. You could probably have some exposure to him at only 3K. But that's really where I'd be leaning on the Georgia side. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the only place I'm playing. I know I love Carson Beck. I think he's a great quarterback, going to be drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. But looking at it, it's Branson Robinson. Clemson, lost a lot up front. A lot of guys went to the NFL draft, including even, their second level, like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. They're very strong defensive backfield. So, if you're going to attack them, I think it's going to be in the trenches. And that's where Georgia wants to establish the game. So I'm with you. I like the running game of Georgia. Branson Robinson, keep an eye on it, obviously, with ETN. But if he's out, this becomes, I don't want to call it a must play, but, at 4,800 on DraftKings, very, very cheap. On the other side, Clemson, we don't want to attack Georgia. That's a fact. And I mean, Klubnik is just one of those guys. I can't get my feel on him. He came out, burst on the scene, took over DJ Uiagalelei's starting spot 2 years ago, looked like the guy. He was terrible last year. Let's just be honest. They had the least yards per throw last year in the ACC. Clemson, with all that talent, the least in the ACC. So I don't like anything in the passing game except maybe Brenningstool, Joel. We're tight end central here. We are tight end university. Jake Brenningstool really, kind of will be that safety blanket at 4,400. I could see maybe, 5-6 catch game, a touchdown. He could really pay you off 2-3 times your value.
There you have it. I agree. I think Klubnik might have some potential to improve this year. But this is not the week I want to test that. We'll see in a weaker opponent if we might want to see if they make some improvements in the passing game. So there you have that game. Let's move over.
Let's answer this real fast from Solid Picks. What's up, man? Thanks for checking in. Yes, from all I've seen, I think Joel's on the same page. Hearing Branson Robinson will be the featured back if ETN is out. So I do like him a little over Frazier. But I think Frazier has potential to at 3K. It's just I don't know. We've seen some interesting situations in Minnesota the other night. What's the kid's name that came over and didn't get a snap? Like some of these, low value running backs, you got to be very careful with. I'd play low percentage on Frazier, is my opinion. But yeah, I'd lean Robinson.
That's a GPP risk play, not someone I would roll out with a high level of confidence. All right, let's move over to this Vanderbilt Virginia Tech game. One of the highest owned players today is going to be Kyron Drones. Mm-hmm. Now, Kyron Drones on paper is the exact profile of the player you want to play in DFS. He can do it on the ground. He can throw them in the air. They're a big favorite. They should be able to score at will against this team. My only concern with Drones is I don't think this will be a competitive game. And do you want your franchise, your go-to quarterback, running the ball and airing it out and doing all these things up 3 or 4 touchdowns in the second half? Probably not. So, again, I think this is one where, in my opinion, you're probably getting limited snaps or quarters. And listen, there's absolutely a world where Drones gets there today. I'm not saying you don't play him, but I'm more arguing if he's the highest owned player on the slate, there's also a world where he doesn't get there. And if you want to get different, especially in GPPs and find a different route, I think I'm okay with you looking elsewhere for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm big on Drones. We were last year. Just the rushing value in college football is huge, and he brings that. Last year, 647 rushing yards, 4 TDs. So he moves the ball through there. Great touchdown interception ratio, 17-3. So I mean, he's the guy, and I love him. And I think Vodtech can be a sneaky ACC challenger this year. I mean, the ACC is wide open. You already saw Florida State lose to Georgia Tech. You're going to see what Miami is today, and Clemson is 2 tough SEC games. So I like Drones, but I'm with you. The biggest risk there is the opponent, where I think he'll score and get points, but it's also the field. And I think the field's going to be so heavy on Drones where you can get some other better options that will score similar. So I'm in on Drones, but I'm lighter than the field. The guy I'm more in on is Bashal Tootin. Like, the worst rushing defense on the slate is Vanderbilt. They were 107th in the nation last year. Compared, that's about 129 teams in college. They were down at the bottom. They allowed, upwards of 175 yards rushing a game. They allowed the most points in SEC at 36.2. So we're going to have to play Vodtech. If you're going to play him, I feel like Tootin's probably my number one on this slate of a Vodtech Hokie.
I agree. I think Tootin is safer. Even if they're up 3 or 4 scores, they're still going to run the ball. And I think he can get more late garbage points in this game. I prefer the two, especially from an ownership standpoint as well. And if I'm looking at a pass catcher, the two guys I would want are Ali Jennings, who just seems to be a little bit underpriced at 5,600. He's their top guy. He was hurt last year, but he's a stud. And I think Daquan Felton is a guy who they like to go for the deep ball, and I think there's going to be plenty of deep opportunities. So if you want to catch a big play, I think Felton would be the guy to do so.
Yeah, Jennings is interesting. Played one game last year, but I mean, on all reports out of the Hokie land down there in Blacksburg, Virginia, he is back and healthy. So yeah, I like it both ways there. So the interesting thing is Vanderbilt. I'm not sure where to land there because I think they're going to have to try and keep up pace. Spread's 13, so there is some implied team totals with Vanderbilt somewhere near 20. My biggest thing with them is they named Pavia the quarterback. I think that's too much money. I think 7,200 for a quarterback that I don't know can really get there is too much. So I'm probably major fade on all Vandy.
Yeah, no, it's an easy one for me. No exposure for Vanderbilt.
Okay.
They haven't proven anything on offense. I don't have a high level of faith in any of their skill players. I think the only world where I might have any exposure to Vanderbilt is a world where I play Cedric Alexander, their running back, in a heavily Virginia Tech focused lineup where I want to say there's going to be some back and forth, but for the most part, I'm going to be low, if not exposed at all.
Yeah, Pavia runs the ball a ton, but he's a redshirt senior. That's my only reason, maybe, but I feel in a 12-game slate, there's just some better options out there, and I got some value out there. So I think I'm a fade on Vanderbilt as well, but Pavia, maybe.
All right. Penn State, West Virginia. Now, it's in West Virginia. I think this is going to be a really fun game.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett Green is going to be one of my favorite quarterbacks this year for many weeks. I don't love this matchup. Penn State is a good football team, and they're not the most explosive offense. I think Penn State's going to run the ball. They're going to have some success on the ground, and Penn State plays good defense. I think in game environments where West Virginia has more of a back-and-forth type of team or a more explosive offense, I'm going to love Garrett Green and want to get exposure. I just don't think this is going to be a back-and-forth game. I think this is going to be a more defensive game, maybe a 24-14, 24-20 type look. I think there will be better spots today for DFS purposes, but we'd love your take, Dave.
I agree. I love Garrett Green. I do, and I love him in a lot of the situations he'll be put in against weaker teams and weaker defenses, but Penn State's tough, man. They really – there's only one game last year that you could say, what was Penn State doing? That was Michigan, when Michigan ran the ball every play in the second half and couldn't stop them. Every other team, they stopped on the ground. And I think they'll do the same to Garrett Green. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that guy up in Syracuse that we had a year or so ago, Schrader. Yeah. If you stop his running game, I think you slow down the passing attack as well, and you just beat them up. And I think Penn State can do that today. I think Penn State's actually undervalued today. A lot of people love West Virginia straight up. I think West Virginia is good and decent, but what you said is so right. Penn State's good, and they're really good on defense, and they're back with a strong defensive line, strong linebacking core. I think Garrett Green is better off against teams, where he can run the ball. I don't know how he'll find running room today.
I agree. So like I said, we're excited to get to Green this season. Probably not this week. I will have some exposure to the Penn State running game because they split carries. I'm not going to go crazy, right? Because none of them is guaranteed that much volume. For the most part, I'm not going to be overly exposed to this matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to enjoy the game, but I don't think it's a great DFS environment. If you look at it, the game total is 50. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games higher than that. I'd probably live other places. If anything, it's not a game stack. It's a 1-off, 2-off, like you said. Maybe I won't play Singleton and Allen together. I got to split them up and just hope one busts, right? That's what happens when you have a dual, backfield. You got to take one and live with it. Singleton's probably the bigger home run hitter and the better pass catcher. I know Allen does get receptions, but I'd lean there first with Singleton.
I'm with you on that. All right. Let's move this along to the Pittsburgh-Kent State game. This one's interesting. I think there's an interesting decision to be made here on the Pittsburgh side. Pittsburgh's new offensive coordinator came from WCU, Western Carolina, who we saw play the other night. That was a team that almost upset NC State. They are an explosive offense. They were very good for the last few years. They're now offensive coordinators at Pitt. This Pitt offense is going to look different. They're going to play faster. They're going to move the ball. They're going to look better. They were pretty dry for the last couple of years. They're going to look different. The question is, can Eli Holstein actually get it done? Eli Holstein was a 4-star recruit who went to Alabama. Obviously didn't see the field at Alabama, transferred to Pitt. The guy has talent, right? Is he going to fit into this system? The reason why I find him interesting is he's 5,400. They're playing a heavy favorite against an overmatched Kent State team at 5,400 in what should be a fast-paced, new-look offense. You know, it's hard to find value. A $5,400 quarterback, he doesn't have to go crazy. If he has 250 and 2 touchdowns, let alone he runs one in, now he's completely smashed value. And let's not forget, this isn't an even matchup. Penn State should outmatch Kent State. All the cards are kind of tipping in his favor. I'm intrigued by Holstein today. And also on that Pitt side, you probably remember Hammond Jr. has been Hammond Jr. has been their running back. He's been on this team for years. He has been suspended for the year. Suspended, whatever it is, he's out. He's not playing. So they got transferred Desmond Reed from WCU following his offensive coordinator. This guy was a stud at Western Carolina. He's coming here. By all accounts, he's looked good in camp. He's only 4,600. They're outmatched. They're a better team. I'm definitely going to have some exposure on the Pitt side between Holstein, Reed, and their top receiver, Mumfield.
Reed's one of my favorite plays on the card today. Listen, Kent State was bad, like atrocious last year. 1-11. They barely scored any points. I think they were last in the nation or somewhere down there at 14 points a game. They're just not good. Now, will they get a little better this year? Maybe they've made some changes, but the fact is, I want to live on the Pitt side. If I'm going to live anywhere, it looks like the running game, like you said, Desmond Reed coming over from WCU, where his offensive coordinator came from, loves him, knows him, and now Hammond's out. I mean, it's his game, and I think it's going to be a big game. We saw him last year score over 30 points in like 4 games. Like he's fast, and I think he's built for a big game against a bad Kent State team. So, look, the total is 55.5. It's third highest on the slate. Spread's 24. So, I think Pitt has a better chance to play some players, and like you said, with the new offensive coordinator, kind of try and figure some things out. They might play him into the fourth quarter. So I'm willing to play some of those guys that you mentioned on Pitt, but especially Reed.
Boom. I love it. We're aligned there. On the Kent State side, I'm not going to have much exposure. Maybe I would throw in one of the receivers, Flory or McCray, if I want to get into a game stack, but I don't think you need to force that.
Yep, I agree.
All right, let's look at this Maryland-UConn game. There's not going to be a lot to talk about here. In my opinion, there's really only one player to even mention in this game. I think some people will be interested in the Maryland passing game. I'm not. With 2-2 gone, it's kind of let's wait and see what this passing offense looks like. We know Roman Hemby. He's been their guy for a few years. I think they make him the featured player in this offense. Again, UConn stinks. I think Maryland's going to run the ball all over them. Hemby would be the guy I would look to get exposure to. Outside of Hemby, I'm not going to be too interested in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And then the only one I'll throw out there, and this is like GPP, take a prayer on, is UConn starting quarterback Nick Evers. And he's at 4,800. Here's the reason why. He's actually a blue chip. He was in Oklahoma, transferred to Wisconsin, now transferred to UConn, won the starting job. So he's got, a really good arm. He does run the ball. So he's got some potential. He just hasn't found a home yet. Now he's got a home at UConn. 4,800, not many people know about him, never played a game. You could get, if he sneaks a touchdown in here or there, pops 150, 180 yards. I mean, you could get, 18, 20 points out of this guy and really get almost 4x value, where you would need to get, 36 to 40 out of a guy like Cam Ward. So Nick Evers is a guy that's on my radar. I'll play lightly in some places.
I mean, to Dave's point, a $4,800 starting quarterback is a value. I mean, if they can find a way to put some points up, you can really smash at 4,800. So I wasn't thinking about him, but I think, Dave, you made some good points. He could be interesting. So keep an eye on him. All right, let's look at this. Okay, so I think this game is really interesting. This Oklahoma State, South Dakota State game. South Dakota State is a back-to-back national champion in what is now 1AA. They have a returning quarterback who probably is an NFL player.
Yeah.
Their defense is very good. The thing is, Oklahoma State has like 5 NFL players that are all in skill positions, and they return basically most of their team from last year, and they were very good last year. So, I think South Dakota State is a team that could upset a lot of these big Power 5 teams. But this Oklahoma State team is very, very good. The question mark about Oklahoma State, though, is what is their defense, right? Like, they might not be able to get stops. They weren't great on defense last year. I don't know if they've made any improvements in the offseason. A lot of people think that South Dakota State could be a live dog. People think they can go out and win this game. They lost a bunch of playmakers, especially receivers, to the NFL. They probably have replacements. We'll find out. My favorite play on the South Dakota State side is Amar Johnson at running back at 4,500. I think they're going to establish the ground game and try and keep this Oklahoma State offense off the field. They are, I think, a physical team. I think Amar Johnson at 4,500 is pretty cheap, and he has some upside here. So I like Amar Johnson on the South Dakota State side. In terms of receiver, it looks like their go-to guy is going to be Griffin Wild at 4,800. Like I said, it's an NFL quarterback. If he's the guy they feature, I think he has some upside, and I will have some exposure to him as well. Would love your take on South Dakota State here, Dave.
Yeah, the Jackrabbits are, one of my favorite teams. You looked at North Dakota State the other night, and for example, should have won that game against Colorado. Now, Oklahoma State's a much better team than Colorado. Don't take those two as a comparison, but you do see these types of, valued underdogs that play some really good football. Like I might come in and really challenge teams. And I think they'll give Oklahoma State, a really, really good game. And Oklahoma State, nothing to write home about on defense. Like you said, last year, 90th in points per game, almost 30 points per game they allowed, 99th in rushing. I'm sure they'll sit there and try and, improve and upgrade that. But at the same time, that's South Dakota State's game. And Mark Gronkowski at quarterback will run the ball. I mean, he averages 8 to 9 carries per game, but he's a guy that'll be, I think we could play him today at pretty cheap at quarterback as well, only at 6,100, with the vulnerability behind Oklahoma State's defense. On the other side, like you said, I think we're going to, I don't know. Gordon, you got to love it. 9,100 is a lot. He's the most by far today. I'll play him a little bit, but I got to be honest with you. I just think there's better prices, better options. It's the wide receivers that I'm most interested in with Oklahoma State today, and especially Presley.
I like all these receivers. I mean, Presley's the best of the bunch. I'm probably going to be highest exposed to Owens today. I mean, I don't think Owens is too far behind Presley. I think you get him at a significant discount at only 5,200. I'm going to be playing a lot of Owens. I think South Dakota State can do a decent job bottling up the run. I think they're going to try and press the box. I think they're a tough team. I think they're going to dare Oklahoma State to throw. And the problem is when you dare them to throw, they have 3 borderline NFL receivers that are going to get open in one-on-one coverage. So if that's how they play the game, which I assume they will, I think these guys make some plays. So I will want to have some exposure to this receiving core as well.
Yeah, I agree. And hey, Warren, thanks for checking in. We've already noted, and I agree, it's a running back fun day, right? There's some great value. We've already noted some big ones. If you haven't seen it yet or heard it, Desmond Tyler out of Pitt, 4,600. We both like Damian Martinez, Miami, 6,900. We haven't got to some of our favorites, but Tootin out of Hot Tech, obviously. Gordon here, but I think we're kind of lighter than the public on that. And Branson Robinson out of Georgia, keep an eye on too, 4,800. So, I think I wish I could play 5 or 6, but we're gonna have to find a way to get 3 good ones in there. And this game shows some value there too. But Joel, I think this is a good one to stay in, a 10-point spread. So one of the lighter spreads and one that's at 54 total. So I think there's value in game stacking this game as well.
I am with you on that. Let's head over to the afternoon, the later portion of games. We'll start with Texas and Colorado State. This again should be a blowout. Colorado State's not terrible. I think they might, maybe for a little bit keep it interesting. Eventually, Texas is going to pull away. Again, Texas is going to score a lot of points. I just don't think Quinn Ewers is throwing the ball for 4 quarters here. So at 9K, I have a hard time justifying a game I don't think is going to be. All right, we're back. We had a brief moment of frozen television, but we are back and we apologize. So, What we were just saying was, I think Texas runs away with this game. Maybe the Colorado State keeps it close for a half. I don't think Quinn Ewers is throwing the ball for 4 quarters. So at 9K, I think it's hard to justify. Who I like is Jaden Blue. Jaden Blue was coming into the year splitting carries with C.J. Baxter as a stud. C.J. Baxter's out. I think that means Jaden Blue gets the majority of the carries. And an overmatched Colorado State team. Jaden Blue might be my favorite running back on the slate. That's where I'm going to be looking to get my most exposure to this Texans team. I'd love to hear your take, Dave.
I love it. We don't talk beforehand. We don't share notes. Jaden Blue's 1 or 2 on my list of running backs. And, there's one other, and we'll talk about him coming up soon just because of the price. But Jaden Blue, top notch. Colorado State, 98th in rushing last year, allowed almost 170 yards per game. And like you said, with the big point spread, the ability to win this game on the ground instead of passing, Texas has proven that they're almost like running back university of late. I mean, we've seen Bijan. We saw this year with Brooks going to Carolina. First running back taken. They just turned into some a university that breeds running back. So the next one in line, Jaden Blue, he looked good last year in spurts, and I think he's going to have the job. So I love him. One other note, 16.5, highest total on the board. Just be a little careful here, like Joel said, 34-point spread. How long do these starters play? I'm not going to get in on Ewers just because of the price. And if he only goes 2.5, 3 quarters, it burns me. So I'm probably going to be picky with Texas. I'm going to go receiver and a running back combo or one receiver. I'm not going to get 2 team stack with them, just 1 or 2 at most. And
you mentioned we don't share notes. We haven't talked about it, but I do know who your other running back is.
you have to know, right?
Everybody knows he was completely mispriced. Syracuse's running back is a stud, and they didn't price him right. So the issue is everyone knows that. So he's going to be highly owned. But he is certainly in a good spot, and we will get to that shortly. But before we do, I do not want to bury the lead. My favorite game to get involved in today is Miami and Florida. I think if we talk about game scripts and why there's games that we like, we mentioned some of these games have higher totals, right? But it's one team that's lopsided that's going to score all the points and become a blowout. This game is a 2-point spread. This is going to be a very close football game. This is going to be a back-and-forth game. Miami has brought in Cam Ward, who is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. They're going to be able to throw the ball better than they have in the past. And Graham Mertz is on the rise, right? Graham Mertz came from Wisconsin, and we all kind of laughed at him and were like, hey, they don't throw the ball. They looked better last year. I think they're improving. They're going to look even better this year. He has more weapons to throw to. I think this becomes a shootout. I think this game has potential to be higher scoring. I would bet the over if you can. And this is the game where I want to stack. This is where I want exposure. I'm going to have multiple players in this game. I think this is the one that goes over and we find some value. So starting with Ward, he's my favorite play on the slate, even at 9K. I think they can find a way to air it out. He might even be able to run one in. He scrambles a lot. Damian Martinez transferred from Oregon State. He was a stud running back there. I think he's going to elevate this rushing game at Miami. He is absolutely in play at 6,900. But it's this Miami receiving core I'm really interested in. Xavier Restrepo, absolute stud, really came on strong last year. He's the number 1 option, and he fits so perfectly in the type of receiver that Cam Ward likes to throw to. If you remember his teams at Washington State, this is the type of guy that Cam Ward will find. I will be overexposed to Xavier Restrepo. I also want to make sure everyone's aware of Samuel Brown. Transfer from Houston, a stud receiver, will play in the NFL. He's another explosive weapon that had a good report with Ward in the offseason. He's a guy at under 6K, I think, has potential to make a few big plays, maybe even find the end zone. From a value side on Miami, let's not forget about Elijah Arroyo. He's not even listed as a starter, but I believe he will be the starter at tight end. This is a big-time recruit who has been injured, hasn't been playing. He is back and healthy. He's extremely athletic at only 3,100. I think Elijah Arroyo could be a sneaky value play to sneak into your lineups in this game. Dave, would love your take on the Miami side.
Yeah, hey, I'm going to get there in a sec. Let me just say, I gotta do a little quick promo here. We got a big thing going on at Win Daily Sports with football season coming up. You can check the banner below, $14.99 a week, $49.99 a month. It's a steal. And if you look at other sites out there and you understand the pricing that they're asking for, this is great. We got player prop models. We got player projection models. We got, lineup optimizers, you name it. We got it for every single sport. Other thing we're doing we paired up with Underdog Fantasy, as you see on the banner there. Win Daily 100 is your code you want to put in there if you want to join Underdog. I'm going to be giving out a couple picks today. We did last week a couple best ball drafts in Underdog. It's a great place. To me, it's we got a few ways to do this, but with college football out there, to be able to bet a couple player props and parlay them together, it's really neat because it's hard when you go into a sports book and you have to dig through 90,000 games. The props are right there, right for you. And we'll talk about those shortly. But yeah, Joel, I do want to talk a little bit about Miami because I said Damian Martinez earlier. I'm going to say him again. And Florida really leaked oil at the end of last year. Really bad rushing defense. They let up some historic rushing games. I can remember Ray Davis from Kentucky. But case in point, they were 81st in rushing yards per game. They allowed 155. Damian Martinez is coming over from Oregon State. He was one of our favorites. Remember, I'm a big, I just loved the way that team played. And he had 1185 rushing yards last year, but the key was 6.1 yards per carry. And he did just about that this season before. He's a power runner, a good receiver, and now he's got a quarterback because I've already saw what Oregon State's quarterback was last year. He's at Florida State now, and he stinks. DJ Uiagalelei. The second time I've had to say his name today, and I hate it. But now he has a quarterback. Now he has some space. Now he has some room, a receiver, and Xavier Restrepo, who we'll talk about too. I think it's Martinez were one of my favorite on the board today. It'll be interesting to see how Miami attacks, right? With Cam Ward, I think the best quarterback in the transfer portal. Are they going to go try and air it out? Are they going to try and balance it? It's going to be interesting. So for me, I'm probably going to play a little bit of Ward, Restrepo, and some other receivers without Martinez, and then I might play Martinez naked. I don't know about you, but I want to load up on the Miami side.
I agree. I think Miami's in a great spot against this Florida team, but I think Florida punches back. I think Florida's going to be an explosive offense as well. I think Graham Mertz is even in play. I'm going to be stacking this game heavily. Graham Mertz has some really solid weapons on this Florida team. Eugene Wilson will be an NFL player at 7,100. He's the go-to guy. I love Eugene Wilson, but Chimere Dike is underpriced. They played together at Wisconsin. He's transferred over at 3,300 as their second option. That is too cheap. I will for sure have exposure to DK in this matchup. And then other guys that are in play. I think you can play Montreal Johnson, the running back at 5,700. Elijah Badger, who's a transfer from Arizona State, who was very good there. I think he'll be involved today on the Florida side as well.
Yeah, I love DK. I remember trying to play him at Wisconsin. And one thing you got to remember about this: where did Graham Mertz come from? Wisconsin 2 years ago. So he has a little bit of a rapport built with DK, a little bit. And I think that goes a long way when bringing a new person into a new system. That is a sneaky $3,300 value play there that I love a lot. And like you said, I think Wilson's a great play. I think, all up and down this whole game. I mean, you're talking about a game that's the third highest total on the board. Both implied team totals, upper 20s. I think we could get a really good game stack going here. And when I talk game stack, 5 to 6 players.
Yeah, this is the game I'm going to have the most exposure to today, for sure. All right, let's look at this Ohio State Akron game, and this one will be quick because I can easily tell you you're not playing anyone on Akron. No, yeah, there's not even allowed. Don't even look on the Akron side. So we can go to Ohio State again. This is going to be not close. I can't imagine the starters playing the second half. So yes, they can score enough points in the first half, but this is going to be get out of control, and it's going to get out of control quickly. So the issue is, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson are two of the top 4 backs in the country, but they're on the same team. So they each can't get the ball 20 times. So they're eating into each other at 75 and 7,900, in a game where they're going to do what they want. Can you play one? Sure. But I'm not going to go nuts because, again, none of them are going to get 25 carries because they eat into each other's workload. So I'll have a little bit of exposure to them. I would actually prefer the Ohio State passing game. Jeremiah Smith is the next big receiver. He's the freshman. He's supposed to, he'll probably be a first-round pick in 2 years. At 5,400, he's not one who, in an overmatched team, I might look at to score a touchdown, who's pretty affordable. We know Ejbuka, he's been there for a few years. He'll be the number 1 guy. I think he could even get there as well. But because of the blowout nature of this game, I'm not going to be overexposed.
Yeah, I'm going to play some Judkins just because I expect, them to – like you said, the balanced running attack, I get it, 7,900, a little bit much, but, there's potential for a 2-3 touchdown game and over 150 yards. And I'm fine with that. I just think he's more explosive between him and Henderson. There's a reason Ohio State, already with a great running back in Toll, goes out and grabs, one of our favorite running backs from Ole Miss and brings him in for this season. So I will play some Judkins, but, the name you said that we're going to say so much more going into the season, Jeremiah Smith. He's the next in line of great Ohio State receivers. I mean, you saw Marvin Harrison Jr. get drafted last year in the top 10. You've just seen the line from Chris Olave. We can name him, Garrett Wilson. This team just has, it's wide receiver university. Jeremiah Smith is at 5,400. His first game, I do think they're going to want to get him the ball and show what kind of talent he is. So I love that play. I think Jeremiah Smith is a great option today. Egbuka, we know who he is. He's good, right? But he's not super explosive. He can get down the field and beat you behind D-backs, but he's not the next level like this Smith is. 5,400 discount. Love Smith today.
Boom. I love it. All right. We'll go over to this Miami, Ohio Northwestern game. This is another quick one. It's hard to suggest too many Northwestern players. The only guy I would even consider is Cam Porter, and that's if I play him in one lineup. I will likely not have any exposure to Northwestern. Miami, Ohio side, I do find Mosey to be interesting. He hasn't been great, but the starting running back from Miami, Ohio has been productive. He gets the start at 3,800 against not a great team at Northwestern. I think you can find some value in Mosey. So he's who I'd be interested in this game. Other than that, I will not have too much exposure.
Yeah, 39 points. That's enough for me. I'm out. I mean, that's the team total of this game. I mean, you're talking, you got 60.5 and you in Texas. I mean, Ohio State teams are going to outscore these two teams combined. I'm just not going to play much in this game, if at all. So I'm with you.
I'm with you on that. All right. Well, this is what we were waiting for. Whoever made pricing this week certainly had some head-scratching decisions on the Syracuse side. LeQuentin Allen's a stud running back. Why they price him at 5,100 is beyond me. It's a clear misprice. It's a no-brainer play. On paper, it might be the best play on the week. The only issue that I'd raise for you is everyone knows that. And it's not going to be a secret, and that you're going to have to eat some ownership. And if you think there's a world where maybe he doesn't get there and you want to get different, fine. But on paper, LeQuentin Allen is probably the best play of the week. Clearly underpriced. Will be highly utilized in the Syracuse offense. But maybe one of the next best value plays of the week is Syracuse's tight end, an NFL player who might be the first tight end drafted. He'll certainly be one of the top 3. Oronde Gadsden, absolute stud. He's going to be one of the best tight ends in the country. Why they price him at 3,500 is confusing. Maybe it's because they were hurt last year and they forgot how good he was. But he's their best playmaker outside of Allen. And he will be one of my favorite value receivers under 4K that you can play this week as well.
Yeah, you said it. The number one running back, LeQuentin Allen, 5,100, complete misprice. Now, I will say, just understand this. As much as it seems like a layup, a very easy play, there are some things you just got to consider. Ohio had 6th least points per game in the whole NCAA last year at only 15.8. They only allowed 91.2 rushing yards per game. So that was 8th best in the nation. So there is some reason maybe the pricing got low, but I think this was just a miss. Now with a better quarterback in Syracuse, I think Allen will still find room to run and get loose. 5,100. Yeah, I think it's a great play. He's still going to be up there number 1, but he is going to be heavy, like you said. He's going to be heavily owned. So I'll just be a little bit lighter than probably the most. So what are some of the percentages you're seeing on your end?
I see it about 40 to 45%.
Yeah. I got to be lower. I got to probably be in the, with all these running backs. I mean, Warren talked about it earlier. Some others talked about it earlier. 5 to 6 that we love them. I think we love 6 to 8 that we've already talked about. I think I can be somewhere in the 20% range. How about you?
I'm probably going to be closer to 30, but yeah. I don't, it's not a lock where I think you can, get different that someone else could break the slate. Even on the other side of the ball, Ricky Hunt, Ohio tends to feature a running back. Ricky Hunt's going to be that guy. He had a good bowl game last year at 4,800. He's, actually cheaper than Allen. Allen's the better play on paper, but Hunt's another guy that could get there, especially a way to get different.
Yeah, definitely. And, in this game in total, Syracuse might be okay this year. They might be pretty decent. And we're looking at, totals at 44.5 only because the defense of Ohio. So don't get too heavy But definitely, get in there. I think get some shares of Syracuse. On the other side, not much into Ohio. So that's where I'm at in this game.
All right. Last game on the slate, UTEP and Nebraska. I'll make this easy for you. The only player on UTEP you can even consider, which I'm not going to very much so, is Javon Jackson. He's their go-to player. He's 4,500, so he's certainly affordable. But this Nebraska defense is tough, especially up front. I think it's going to be hard to find running room, but he is a better talent than that price if you want to try and get a sleeper running back who maybe could get some upside. But the story in this game is going to be on the Nebraska side, and it's Dylan Raiola, who's the number one recruit in the country, true freshman. The question is, has Nebraska finally found a quarterback that can carry him? I would say yes. This guy's going to be a stud. He's going to be an NFL player. I think they go out against an undermanned they're going to get blown out, UTEP, and I think they're going to let Raiola show out and kind of have his intro to the college football world. And so the guys you can play him with, my favorite pairing would be Nair, who is a converted tight end, big, strong guy. He has the injury issues. I think he started at Texas, was going to be a really star there, but they transferred after his injuries. And he seems to have had a healthy camp. Him and Banks are the number one receivers at 5,200. I think Nair could be a guy that can get you there.
Yeah, I love it. And I think Raiola is one. If he's not my favorite quarterback on the slate at 8,200, he's top 3. I'm throwing him up there with Cam Ward, obviously, drones on my end. But Raiola is right up there. I think, being such a top-heavy recruit in Matt Rule's new, he's got to make a statement here. Nebraska's been kind of down for a long time here, and they're looking for some juice. And I think today they try and show off this talent that decided to pick Nebraska out of all the other teams. So I'm with you. I think they showcase him today. I think they showcase him a little on the ground, a little in the air. It's an easier opponent where they can, kind of get interesting and try and just throw everything out there and try and put up some big numbers. So Dylan Raiola, top notch. I'm with you. And then from the receiver, I like where you are. And Banks, obviously, I think it will have a big game as well. So it's Nebraska, and I like a 3-man stack on Nebraska side today.
Boom. I love it. That is a wrap for the game-by-game breakdown. Before we get you out of here, we have some underdog pick'em, some prop plays that we can put your way to have a great Saturday today. Dave, let's start with you. Who are you targeting in the prop market?
Well, yeah, and let me just, my computer went out a little bit right when you were talking Colorado State, Texas. I just got to add, Torrey Horton is a top wide receiver for me today. Love. I mean, I think he had like 96 catches in 12 games last year. He was getting like 8 a game. Like, he's going to be huge today. And then I'm also looking at, in that game, the quarterback from Colorado State, long name, but Braden Feller Nicolosi, a cheap play. But the reason I said that, Joel, I'm looking at a 3-man or 3 parlay stack. I'm going Torrey Horton over 68.5 on Underdog. Add Jaden Blue, the Texas running back, over 93.5 rushing yards, and Bishal Tootin over 76.5 rushing yards. We're going against bad defenses here. Torrey Horton on the other side is mainly, blowout potential to get some yards. Those 3 will pay 6-1. So it's Horton, Tootin, and Blue all over their totals, 6-1 on Underdog. Tell me if you want, but 6-1 sounds good to me.
I love those odds. I will be telling you on those picks. I'm not going to be too active in the prop market, so I'm telling you, Dave, I think you were spot on. Blue seems like a great spot. It'll be one of my number 1 DFS plays as well today. I'm super excited to be back. College football DFS is my favorite. Some great tournaments this way, some good spots to target. Before we get everyone out of here, Dave, is there any game bets that you like today?
Yeah, and let me just answer one question in the crowd. 3-man Nebraska stack. I'm looking at Raiola and his 2 receivers. I'm leaning Banks and Nair to start, but there's some other options you can get in the receiver world there. But that's the 3-man kind of look. Like I said, I think they're going to try and showcase him in the air today. So I'd love to take 2 receivers. It worked last night. If you were on the TCU side, they had 3 receivers total. I think it was 27 catches, each average about 9. So you could get there with 2 receivers and a quarterback. Yeah, Joe, there's a lot of good games on the slate today. And like I said earlier, one thing early on that I'm looking at, I think Georgia is, much better than Clemson. I think they can dominate that game on the ground. But one where I just think the public is all aligned is West Virginia. So I'm going to kind of shade over and take Penn State. I think that defense, I think the fact that, they got the quarterback in there all for another year, maybe a little bit more comfortable, the 2 running back situation here. I'm leaning Penn State just because I'm going against the grain here. Heavy public bets, heavy money coming on West Virginia, and the spread's going down just a little bit. I can still get it at 7.5. I like Penn State.
I love it. I'm going to, for similar reasons, I'm going to take Oklahoma State. I think people are a little bit overrating the South Dakota State team. Don't get me wrong. They're a great team. They don't face talent like they're going to face against Oklahoma State today. They've also lost a lot of big-time NFL talent to the draft this year, which I think, is going to show. They're going to need some playmakers to keep up with this Oklahoma State team. So I think the line is a little bit too low at 11. I like Oklahoma State to cover.
Love it. Hey, let me just say, I'm going to be posting our picks, some of the core plays here in our Discord. So if you missed it, you want to just quick recap, hop into Win Daily Sports. If you're not a member now, sign up. Discord's free. Look for the college football general chat room. I'll have them in there every night. Been posting some that we like today. I'll recap a bunch of our favorites there. And hopefully, hey, show us your screen. Show them when they're green, because I really feel like we're going to have a huge day today. I'm maxed out in a couple contests. I'm looking for a big day. And like I said, and like Joel said, we partner with Underdog Fantasy here. We got the Win Daily 100 code. If you want to get in there, tail that 6-man pick. I'll put that in, or the 3-man pick for 6-1. I'll put that in there. And as well, play around with WinDailySports.com. See if you like it. $14.99 a week. I mean, what is that? It's a lunch, man. If you can save that, we'll win you more than that for sure.
Sign up. We're all going to win this year. Big year, big day. I'm pumped. Good luck. See you next week.